Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers. And today I'm talking about an issue that is coming up, right? It's this gender war, especially in the realm of dating and relationships. I'm going to talk about it more and more so here. This kind of gap between men and women. I often frame it as men and women standing on two opposite sides of a valley or a chasm, right? And we're complaining about the other side, right? We're angry with the other side in some way. Men are angry because, I don't know, women are dating upwards or hypergamy, or they say they want men with emotions, but, you know, they've been dumped because they express how they feel, or, you know, something like that. Or women are annoyed because men are not showing up, men are not leading, men are not, you know, being decent, men are being sexually harassive and so forth, right? And we're on these two sides of this chasm, and we're angry, and we're angry, we get angry, we're getting further and further apart. That's what I really see, right? And I'm going to talk into that and how we can start to solve that problem in ourselves, because really we've got to start with ourselves. There's society, but there's also ourselves, because of many of you listening to this, men and women, right? You're single and you want to be in relationships, or you're in a relationship and you want a happier relationship, right? And this is the business I'm in. I'm in the business of helping people being happier relationships and getting into relationships and being happier in themselves, right? In the way that they communicate and relate. So one of the first things, right, in this area we have to be really mindful of ourselves, right, is the content and the conversations that we're having. Like, if you're looking to overcome this gender war, you need to be incredibly meticulous in seeing the sort of content and conversations that you are engaging yourselves in. So if you're in content where it's saying the opposite sex, saying men are trash, men are useless, or it's saying women are useless, women just want to date up, women blah 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 blah, and it's just entrenching you in this negativity towards the other side, right? If that's the content you're engaging in, that the people that you follow are saying, right? If the social media people that you're following keep really even dog whistling, you know, that subtle way they're kind of pushing this narrative again and again because it gets clicks and it gets views and it gets likes and it gets comments, right? If they are doing that, you need to stop following them. Simple as that. Like, go through your Instagram, go through your Facebook, cleanse it out. If you've got friends that continuously bring conversations about, oh, I was on a date with a guy and he's useless, all men are useless in the dating realm, or, oh, no women are picking me, women don't want men like me, women are all shit, like, da 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 da. If that's the sort of stuff that you're engaging in, that's the sort of stuff that your friends are showing you or they are talking to you about, disconnect. Like, that might be, you know, refusing to have conversations about dating with certain friends. That might be unfollowing your favorite influencers, because I see a lot of influencers doing this, men and women, right? Who are just entrenching their followers more and more in this rhetoric of like, all men are trash, all women are useless, all women are gold diggers, no men are conscious and aware. Right? I see this myself. I've unfollowed people because I'm like, hey, I don't agree with this. Or there's some people I follow and I just observe the way they do this. Because if you're a content creator and you're a man and you create lots of content about how terrible women are, how terrible feminism is, lots of men speak into that because we have this existing trauma and wounding around that topic. Or if you're a woman and you speak a lot about how useless men are, right, and how dangerous men are, a lot of women have trauma around that. So it G's us up. It's like a type of trauma bond, right? So this gender war, right? These influences in this gender war, they don't always know they're consciously doing it, is they are fanning the flames of the war. They are causing you to fall into some sort of trauma bond with them because you give them energy, and with energy you give them money and attention and help their fame rise. So that's a thing you need to be really mindful of. Like, I've had clients and we go through their Instagram and we remove people to start cleansing the way they think. So if you're a man and you're in this red pill stuff, right, get out of it. Or if you're in a woman and you're in women's groups and all they do is bitch about men, leave. That's my first piece of advice. The next piece of advice is like, what are the assumptions you're making about the opposite sex? If you're a man, listen to this. What are the assumptions you're making about women? Like, women only date tall guys. Women only date guys with lots of money. Women only date guys with da 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 da, or, you know, whatever your assumptions are, right? And your assumptions are also based on your experiences, because just because you've experienced something multiple times doesn't make it true. It just means it's happened to you a few times. Like, I could sit here and go, oh, you know, women don't really want a man who's willing to open his heart. Women don't really want a man who's willing to like take the lead, because I've been in relationships before, dating situations and stuff, where I've done those things and I have been rejected, I have been left, right? What assumptions do you want to prove correct? Like, in the days of this dating and this gender war that keeps happening, what are the assumptions you want to be true? That's a question you need to ask yourself. What do you want to be true? Like, if you want it to be true that, women don't want to date men like you, then cool, go with that. But it's not going to help you in your dating life. It's not going to help you create the connection you want. And if you're a woman and you're listening and you're like, oh, I have these assumptions about men being dangerous, men only wanting sex, men not wanting to settle down. It's like, do you want those to be true? How committed are you to those being true? Are you so committed to that over the relationship you want or the connection you desire? And I say this because I've done this with my clients and with Orsa's clients. And when we really see the commitment, when I say commitment, I don't just mean the words you say, I mean the actions, because commitment's about actions, right? How committed are you to which narrative you want to be true? Which wolf do you want to feed more? So it's like understanding this, because it's a really important point, because when we feed this wolf, or we feed the narrative, or we feed these assumptions, those are the ones that our brain starts to pay more attention to. Those are the ones that we only see. And then when we only see something, that's all we experience. Next up, are you really wondering about why the opposite sex, men or women, are doing the things they do or act the way they act, right? Or are you more committed to the assumption I said? But are you really curious about why men don't express themselves? Why men shut down? Or why men are scared of commitment? Like, are you really curious about that? Or do you want to just look at them negatively, right? And think they're malicious? Because we often have experiences in dating with a person we're with, right? They dump us, they leave us, they ghost us, they whatever it is. And we assume that it's malicious. But what we don't do is take some time and go, let me stand in this other person's point of view, like, and generate compassion and be like, what must it be like for them? That doesn't mean there's no responsibility for them, right? That they didn't do something and hurt you. It doesn't dissolve that. But what it comes down to is we look and go, oh, they have their insecurities. They have their own wounding. They have their own trauma, for instance. Like, oh, this guy I was with and he ghosted me. And, oh, how can someone ghost me? They're so bad. Men are so terrible, blah, blah, blah. And we stand and go, oh, actually, this man grew up where when he shared his opinions and thoughts and emotions, he was attacked by his mother, or he was attacked by his father, or he was attacked by his former girlfriend, right? When we decide to stand outside of our anger, our frustration, we look at something from someone else's point of view, we start to heal our own anger and frustration, because we generate compassion and understanding, right? And I know this sounds like super ideal, but it's not ideal. I literally have seen women do this. I've literally worked with men doing this, right? Up next, because I don't want this podcast to be too long. You need to also communicate openly and honestly. When you're in these situations with dating and relationships, it's like, are you communicating honestly, or are you communicating semi-honestly? Where it's like, oh, I'm only going to give as much truth as they give, because I don't want to be like, too heart open, because that's a protectionism. And when we are dating and relating from a point of view of protectionism, right, it's very difficult for us to really connect with one another. Like, as simple as that. Like, we see this all the time. I see it in men, I see it in women, I see it with clients. When we date from protectionism, it's very hard for us to connect, right? And it's as simple as that. So it's like, how can you be more open? How can you be more compassionate? How can you be more honest with who you are, right? Because if you're just standing in that, like, oh, I'm too afraid to do that, I can't do that, I'm waiting for them to do it first, you're just perpetuating the cycles you've already got. Be aware of the cultural influences, right, that are affecting how men and women are showing up in the world. The world has changed a lot in the last 70 years. The role of man and men in society, and the masculine society, is being called forward to really change how it operates, right? And there's no blueprint for this for men. There's no blueprint for like how we need to be. Women, through the lens of feminism, are being called forward to a new paradigm of relating and being in their lives, right? And the paradigm, in many ways, feminism has a blueprint, because they've taken like how men have been in jobs in the positive senses, like how men have been in work, like climbing the ladder, making money, blah, blah, blah is a blueprint. But the blueprint for men that we're asking them to do is be more emotionally attuned, to be more sympathetic, to be more compassionate, to be more open, to be more communicative, all these things. This is a new paradigm for men. Their fathers didn't show us. My father didn't show me, right? So it's not as easy for us to move into. So I'm saying this is from a level of compassion. So we understand, or I speak to a lot of men about the Me Too movement, which is a very beautiful and important and needed movement, but it has scared a lot of men into not taking assertive action in their dating lives because they don't want to see as sex pests. I use that's the words that come to me, right? Men are not wanting to lead and do anything that they kind of construe as masculine, which is like leadership and assertiveness and forward movement, right? Action taking, right? Taking the first move because they don't want to be seen as toxic. And I know that might sound like, oh, that's a cop out, but actually, if you really look through, because I've read plenty of articles about the fallout of Me Too, and there's times where there was polls that said that like a woman feels if a man comes up to her and talks to her in a bar, that she could deem that as sexual harassment. So men have read that, sensitive men have read that and gone, oh, I need to just do nothing. And the same thing with men. It's like understanding that women are very scared sexually, very scared of their physicality, of being hurt, of being raped, of being sexually assaulted, right? Or being taken for a ride or being emotionally abused even, right? So these cultural factors that mean that we're very standoffish, we're not opening to each other. And it's just understanding that and sometimes even speaking into that when we are dating and relating. Another thing that we can do to kind of shift this cultural war internally is start to cultivate friendships with people of the other gender, actual friendships, so that we actually are with friends who we can understand, like, and listen to them and be like, oh, what is it like for you? Like, oh, why did you do that in your dating life? So we can have compassion for those people. And then by proxy, we have compassion for men and women in general. Another thing we can do to heal this problem is we remember that everybody we're dealing with is an individual. They're not just a generalization, the general man. There's no general man, there's no general woman. When we talk in generalizations, we dehumanize the very people that those generalizations point to. So it's really mindful to know that when we talk about this generalization of men or this generalization of women, we dehumanize the very men and women in front of us, because the men and women in front of us are not generalizations. They are individual human beings. So when we're dating and relating, if we're looking at men or we're looking at women through the lens of our generalizations or what red pills told us or black pills told us or feminism told us, right? We're not actually connected to that actual human being in front of us, that individual, because they are not a generalization. So another thing we can do to heal this gender gap, this gender war internally for us, is start to uncover our own biases and patterns towards the opposite gender. A lot of these patterns will be based on our childhood patterns. One of my patterns, for instance, with women is shutting down. Because in my childhood, when I'd done something wrong, my mum would get very angry and I would shut down. So I do the same thing in relationship, right? Or my partner also, who you've probably heard speak, right? Her pattern is appeasement, right? So we often then replay those into our dating lives, right? And that hurts our dating lives. That hurts our relationship. So it's like seeing those patterns and choosing differently. So in my case, it's been to, when there's emotional stuff going on, to stay open, to stay communicating, to like ask what I need and ask for what I want. And in the point for my partner also is like when we're in difficulty or conflict, is for her to not appease, but to say what's there for her and to ask for her needs to be met. It's to work on those patterns, because that will instantly start shifting your relating capacity and your relating ability and what happens in there. And the last point before I start to wrap up, one of the things we have to start shifting in ourselves to change this gender war, this modern dating, like gender war in dating, is find ourselves in places where there's like-minded men and women that we can practice the art of connection, right? We can practice connecting in a space where there's a curated people, right? And it's safe for us to be open, and there's little exercises and little practices so you can spend 10, 15 minutes. So your heart is not on the line, but you get to practice what it's like, right? because this has been valuable to me. I've been to lots of workshops and retreats and so forth, mixed stuff, where I've had the opportunity to do this. And you might hear this and go, oh, that sounds a bit weird. That sounds a bit scary. And it's like, well, what's the other option? Continue in your current war, your current dire situation, or not even dire situation, like just the situation you don't quite want. You're not relating and connecting in the profound way that's possible, and you know it. So I have something connected to that last point, and that is that me and also running a workshop. It's a day-long workshop. We've got a beautiful location in central London, Covent Garden to be exact. And the workshop was called The Art of Deep Connection. It's happening on the 24th of February. It's a Saturday, and it's going to be me and also together running a workshop in person for the first time in 3 or 4 years, right? And it might be the only one we run this year as well. And there's going to be capped a number of people. There's only 20 people, and we're going to keep the gender balance even because of the exercises and the stuff that we want to try out with people. And it's 10 men and 10 women. So you better get your tickets quickly, because I know we've already sent out some emails to people and they're very interested. And yeah, come along, because at the moment there's 20% off, and that's only going to be running for a week or two. If you're interested. So it's like, if you want to come to this, you want to practice some of the skills of connection, right? In a space being held by me and also people who've been doing this for many, many years, right? Then come along. The link is in the show notes. It's going to be a wonderful workshop. I'm super looking forward to it. And if you're a man and you want to be able to open up, express yourself, lead more confidently in your life, your dating life, then I have a 12-week program that starts on the 21st of February. I'm over half full already, and men like to book up things last minute. So don't be too last minute. If you're interested in this, there's going to be a link in the show notes below where you can book a time with me to have a chat, and we'll see if you're suitable for the program and get you in, because this is where men have created magic in their life. Incredibly deeper confidence, being able to express their emotions more deeply, create depth and magic in their relationships. Men have gone on here and they've opened the doors to new types of relational intimacy and sexual intimacy in their relationship, as many of the men who have gone out and just been happier and more confident themselves. So if that is something that you would like, then in the show notes is a link to fill out a little form, which basically is your name and your email, so I can get in contact with you, and then we can have a talk about how you can join that program. But enough from me today. I hope this has been really useful to you. It'd be really beautiful if you would also leave a review and a rating wherever you're listening to this, because it really helps other men see this podcast and other men learn about this, and other men learn that they're not alone in their struggles, that I've been in these struggles, and the men that come to me and work with me have also struggled in many different ways. Until next week, ciao, ciao.